Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hello, FEM Talk Nation. It is another FEM Talk Tuesday. And as always, the show is going to be great because we have an amazing guest that is waiting backstage. But before I bring in our guest, I'm going to bring in Shima She Talks.
Hey, FEM Talk Nation.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I'm always rocking to the music of the opener, right? Like, can't help it. Can't help it. But listen, everyone out there, we have an amazing guest for you today, and I'm not going to delay this. We don't have a hot topic for you today, so don't be upset. But our guest is so good that it does not require a hot topic today.
Our topic is hot enough.
Exactly. It's going to be hot enough, and she's absolutely amazing, and we want to give her flowers, because she is doing some amazing things, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to wait for her to come in the room and join us. All right. So I want to give you, and I'm sorry, I'm just looking at something here because I want to make sure that I do her the honors. Absolutely do her the honors. Her name is Martha Glory Kartaoui. She is a resilient and courageous warrior who has transformed her life from being a cult survivor. Yep, you heard what I said, a cult survivor, to becoming an influential voice and leader in the wellness industry. As the owner of PIC Wellness LLC, she is dedicated to helping others achieve their best holistic health, mind, body, and spirit. Martha is an Amazon best-selling international author. Woo! We're going to give her a round of applause for that. A dynamic speaker, a life visionary, and a skilled healing workshop facilitator. Her unique blend of professional training, personal experience, and spiritual wisdom enables her to walk alongside survivors and support profound warrior. Come on, put up your warrior guns. That's right, warrior transformations. And she's in the background doing it with us because she knows how this works. Her own healing journey and insights inspire, making her a beacon of hope and inspiration. Martha is dedicated to assisting individuals seeking to reclaim their lives. We want to do that. We want to help everybody out there reclaim their lives in order to thrive in their own journey towards self-discovery and fulfillment. And we have Dr. Melissa Mimi Simmons here, so we're going to bring her on in the room. Hello, Dr. Melissa. Hello. We were just introducing our amazing guests. We don't have any hot topics on deck for tonight, but this is going to be so good. We need to make sure that we have as much time as possible with Martha. So we're going to bring her in. I want everybody to give her a round of applause. Here we go. Hello.
Hi. Hi, ladies. I'm so to see all of you. Wow. All the smiles and teeth, and I love it. Makes me so happy.
Absolutely. Well, we want to share and be beacons of light, just like you. So we want to be able to share your story from a place of, one, being able to get the story out there, but two, also to show people that transformation is possible, that when things get hard, that you can turn your life around, right? Which is what you have done. And I'm going to ask you a question first. I'm going to start from a different perspective. I know I had the pleasure of interviewing you, but I want to start from a different perspective today. I want to ask you how you kept the faith, because I know that you are still a very faithful woman, that you believe in God. And I wanted to know how you kept the faith, and you're still a believer. How did that all come about after going through what you went through? And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So I'm going to be completely transparent because you know how I am. I'm just going to speak the truth. And the truth is that I lost my faith for a certain amount of time. I was mad at God. I felt abandoned by God. I felt like God didn't care about me. Like, how does all of these things happen in God's name? And God love you, right? Like, those things didn't add up for me. So I was angry. I was mad. I felt abandoned. And so I went on this path of just trying to survive. And so faith was not at the top of my priority list.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I navigated, and then finally my life starts imploding, and, then you are empty and you have nowhere to run to and you feel all alone. And eventually I started realizing, no, this wasn't God. The things that happened to me were done in the name of God by a man. It wasn't God that did these things to me, right? And there was this awakening. There was this like spiritual like light bulb that went off for me. And it was like, no. God never left me.
Mm-hmm.
I only made it out of there because of God. I only met Papa because of God, right? So slowly I started rebuilding my faith, but understanding that it had to be on my terms.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I had to keep God in like a certain lane, be like, okay, God, you can have this part of my life, but not the rest. Don't you dare try. Right. But slowly, as I stepped into my faith and I found myself again, realizing who I was created to be by God, then you could really re-embrace that journey, right?
Yeah.
But it has been a difficult one, and it has been one of building on each other as I've gone through experiences and as I've healed through things and as I've refound what ignited me in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And thank you for the transparency there, right? Because, we all go through things, right? Everybody has something that they go through in life. And I'm sure at a time I've heard people say, I'm mad at God, right? But it doesn't mean that he's not there, that he's not with us. We're human beings, right? We're spiritual beings actually having a human experience, right? But because of the human experiences, right, we struggle and we have challenges, and sometimes our faith gets challenged right along with the challenges that we have in life. So I thank you for the transparency there to say that I had to find my way back to God, right, and realize who God was and who he made me to be. So I appreciate that. I want to continue to go backwards because you mentioned something, and I've read the book, right, but you mentioned Papa. So I want to start with the good, right, first, and then we'll go back to the backstory. But you mentioned Papa, so talk to us about who Papa was and how you met him.
So Papa is my guardian angel. Papa is the reason that I get this life. And I really, really feel like even 20 years later, and now he's passed on, like Papa lives on in everything that I do. And as I show up in my world, I want to be the Papa for so many other people and so many generations to come. So just to back up, the Papa story is I was born and raised in a religious cult, and I was 25 years old when I escaped. Papa was how I escaped. He was a man from the outside that befriended me. I worked at a fudge shop for the cult, and I didn't have any money because the cult didn't pay me. So I didn't have any money. I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have any of the things that were required to help me escape. And Papa had befriended me like 4 years up to this point, and he'd been visiting me at the fudge shop almost every day. And because I had no extended family, like I didn't have relationships with extended family, he was the closest thing that I had to like a grandpa or somebody that just loved me and supported me unconditionally, because I didn't have those roles in my life because of the cult. So he filled this void inside of me. And I, too, just filled this void inside of him, like another granddaughter, and we just became so, so close. And so eventually he kind of wore me down until I was able to be completely transparent and honest with him about the cult and about what I was part of, and that I didn't have any money and all the things. And he eventually was the way out of the cult, and how he helped me to escape and gave me the means to be able to have a car and have some money to be able to start my new life. So I am forever grateful, and I hope to be the Papa for many others in the future.
That's so amazing. And
I,
when you think about, oh, go ahead, Dr. Melissa.
wow. I just say, just wow. But how did you, knowing that you was in the cult and trust being such a delicate thing for you in your life, how did you come to trust Papa?
So it was a very lengthy process. Like I said, he befriended me over 4 years, and I saw him almost every day. Like he would visit me every day, and he would pray with me and pray for me, like with me. And he was the first person that really told me that Jesus loved me. He was the first person that told me about God was love and that God was merciful and that God was kind. Those words first came out of Papa's mouth. I had never heard them within the cult compound because they didn't teach that type of God. They taught the angry, the brimstone and fire, the hell, the go to, pay for your sins, all of that, kind of the Old Testament. And Papa was talking to me about a loving God and somebody that, treasured me and was merciful and kind. And, so he just we built this relationship and this rapport. And you're absolutely right. I didn't trust anybody coming from what I did. I didn't trust anybody, but he wore me down in a beautiful way. And he just loved and supported me in the way that he could, which was just showing up consistently, right? Like nobody in my life had ever shown up consistently in a positive way without wanting or needing something from me, right? And so when he was just showing up and just being supportive and just checking on me and just really just caring about me, like eventually I began to trust him. And he was the first man that I ever trusted, because every other male in my life had abused me or had hurt me in some way or had abandoned me. So, even though he was like a grandfather figure, he was also the first male that I trusted and that loved me without abusing me, so.
Yeah.
So significant. Thank you for that question too, Dr. Melissa. That was so good. I want to backtrack a little bit now too, so we can tell the story. And I want to mention, because we want to mention this throughout, right? Martha also has a book out, everyone, Glory Going All In. You can get it on Amazon. We'll put her link on the show page so you can make sure that you get her book. But I wanted to go back and start to tell the story, right? Because you didn't choose to be in a cult. So start to talk about how that all came about.
Yeah, so I was born into it. My parents joined the group in 1975, and I was born in 1979. So they were heavily part of it by the time I was born. And by the time I was born, they were pretty deep in, and the isolation had already started. He was in control of every part of our lives by then. Like he named me. My parents didn't name me, of course. He was just so intertwined in our lives in every little decision of our lives, including naming children. So
when
I was born.
I just want to clarify.
Cult man. So I call him cult man.
Yeah.
Throughout my book, I call him cult man.
Yeah.
Of course, that wasn't his real name, but I still have a sister that's actively in the cult, and so I don't say his name publicly. True. But I call him cult man. So he was just really intertwined in our lives, and the isolation had already began. So the first question that people always ask me is like, how do you join something that's so dangerous and so, isolating and so controlling? And I'm like, well, it didn't happen that way. It didn't start that way. My parents aren't that crazy, and how it starts is, my parents were hippies. They were searching for something. They wanted to belong to something bigger than themselves. They didn't have a strong fundamental spiritual background, right? Like they were subjective and they were looking, searching, right? And that's how these things happen. So they got pulled in by the charismaticness of this leader. They were pulled in by the miracles that were done, miracles that were done at his hands. They were pulled in by the idea of a community, of building a community, of building friendship, of building people to support one another, whether that's through gardens and through, right, like sharing food and all of those things that my hippie parents, found attractive. Right. And they're not much different now. Now they're just less brainwashed, but we're all about community. I'm very much about community now. That's something very attractive to me is building community and understanding that we're better collectively. Just minus the brainwashing, the control, the isolation, those types of things.
Right.
So that's how it started.
Yeah.
And that's so, I think I like that you use the community piece. Because so many people, like you said, are searching for communities. And for example, over the last few years, there's been a huge explosion of people joining sororities and fraternities, post-graduation, looking for community, looking for somewhere they belong, looking for something that they could get behind. And we often hear, even using that, you hear about the hazing and things like that happen. And people always ask, how would you have that to happen? And to the same point, when you believe you found people that create a community for you, you fall in line. And to be part of that community and to stay in that community, you do what it's required to be in the community, exactly. to find favor in that community. So I think that is so relatable to, almost everybody, because in some way, shape, or form, we all are looking for a community we belong to, right? Even if it's a family community, you live in a certain area, that community, churches are big communities. So it's not far-fetched to be a part of a community that then something doesn't happen the right way.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Martha.
That's exactly what happened, right? Is the ego got involved, and he was a narcissist. He was a narcissist to begin with. And so the ego was fed. And then, it was almost like, well, if I can get away with this, what else can I get away with? Right. And so then we, as the members or as the brethren, we put him on a proverbial pedestal, and we started allowing and treating him like the God that he was, saying he was, right?
Before he was, yeah.
And so you prop him up, you give him power and ego, right? That's like the perfect catalyst for destruction. Yeah. And that's what happened, because then he became an egomaniac with money, with sex, with, power, with control, all of those things, all in the name of God. But these changes happened so succinctly and so slowly that the brethren didn't realize that this was happening, right? Because it was so calculated. It was so well executed, for lack of a better term, right? Mm-hmm. And so my dad always uses the analogy that it was like you put a lobster in cold water and then turn the heat up slowly. It has no idea that it's being boiled to death, right? Yeah. And then suddenly you wake up one day 30 years later, like my parents did, and you go, holy crap, what happened to our lives? Mm-hmm. How did we get here? Right? And that's what happened to us.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good analogy. Yes. To think about it, because it's piece by piece, right? Bit by bit, you start to take away things from people, and bit by bit, it's so subtle, right? And when you have like all of the people in the community that are all kind of conforming to these changes, right? Then you're like, well, maybe this isn't so bad, right? Because everybody's here and everybody's still doing what is asked of them to do. And when you think about taking the Bible, right, something so precious, right, and turning it to suit your own narcissistic control, right, then it also becomes like, well, this may not be so bad. Everybody else is doing this, and it's in the Bible. He said it's in the Bible, right? Like, how it's so you can see that it's so easy to continue, especially when, like you said, your parents, you were born into it, and your parents were there for years, And he made it so alluring, right? Probably for all the new people coming in, he probably made it so alluring. He made everything look so good. And then he probably gave them a lot of goodness in the middle of all of the muck.
Right.
And,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
It's, and I'm gonna say it like this. It's been my children has every once in a while said, "Oh yeah, we grew up in a cult too," and they say that because one thing I've learned and was told this and lived by it is that people are either one of two things. They're either highly anointed or highly manipulative when it comes to church.
That's good.
And sometimes it's the combination of the both, meaning they could be operating under their anointing at some levels and then operating under their manipulation in others. So it gets confusing if you don't have a discernment of spirit to say, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're capturing you on the words, using the Bible, and then manipulating the verses so that you feel obligated and required to give of whatever that means.
Yeah.
And like you said, it becomes a money thing. It becomes a sex thing. It becomes a thing on all these different levels. And I hate to say it, but it's not far-fetched from many of these churches people go to every day.
Oh yeah.
Every day. And
it's indicative of that whole yin and yang, greatest weakness, greatest strength. It's the same trait. You hit the nail on the head, Dr. Mimi. That is the same trait. It's the same exact trait. It depends on how you use it. And it's just like you said in the beginning. It's
where the manipulation comes from.
Man who, exactly.
Yeah,
it was man who changed.
And it's scary because it's such a fine line.
And you can hit somebody at the point where they're the most vulnerable too, right? Like it depends on where that person is at that point in time in their life. Maybe in another time period, it wouldn't have struck them the way that it struck when you join something like that. But if you get them right at the right moment,
and then you make them feel special, right?
Yes.
And that was part of it, is that we were the chosen people. And so we were not supposed to be like people in the world. We were meant to be different because that was what was required of us. So suddenly you feel, oh, well, people aren't going to understand me because I'm special, right? We can't tell them about what's going on here because we're not supposed to be of the world. Like that's what God's required of us, right? So I mean, it's again another manipulation technique. And the other thing is, I love what you said, Doctor, is it's the techniques that they use the Bible for to create fear, to create control, right? Fear is the way that we control people. Exactly. And so they take bits and pieces out of the Bible or out of different religious texts and use those to keep us in control and keep us submissive and keep us small and keep us without thinking, right, for ourselves. Because if we start thinking for ourselves, we may have questions and it may not fit into the, something may go awry, right? So you have to keep them small. You have to keep them ignorant. You have to keep them in fear of. And that's how he maintained control. And
it's so sad. Because they also they use, to your point, to both of your points, they use your vulnerabilities to also create the control, like the need to be healed. You mentioned the miracles,
right?
The need to be healed. I remember saying, Lord, if I'm disobedient, will you still heal me? I remember asking God those questions and thinking, well, where does my disobedience come from? Am I not being obedient? Did I pay my tithe? Did I pay, because they use those things. Oh, if you don't tithe, if you don't give your money, if you don't do this and you don't do that,
the Lord won't bless you.
But you may not get. So again, it's I want to be healed. I want my family to be safe. I want my this. And we believe that God gives us these blessings, right? So if we're disobedient to the quote unquote, the person that God put here in front of us, what's going to happen to my life? What's going to happen to my family's life?
Yeah. And I want to dive into that a little bit because we talked about like the vulnerabilities of people, right? And then how it becomes a brainwashing thing. I want you to tell us like some of the things that you went through. Maybe talk about kind of how it was when you all were living there, and then go into, moving away, right? But still having that hold, them still having that hold on your family.
Right. So you just have to remember, when I tell you some of these things, you have to remember this is the only thing I knew. I didn't know anything else. And so now, of course, when I repeat them back, it sounds crazy absurd. And I'm a smart, educated woman. Like, I understand how absurd it sounds. So I'm just prefacing it by like, but this is all I knew because I was born into it. So it wasn't just the way we dressed or the things we ate that was controlled by cult man. Our dress, of course, was very, very modest. The women, we couldn't cut our hair. We couldn't wear jewelry. We couldn't wear makeup. We wore blouses and skirts only. Everything was very, very, very modest. Same thing for the men. Men, usually wear Dickies and button down work shirts and things like that, but no t-shirts, no graphics, no shorts. So our attire, of course, was very controlled and very modest, but then our food, the things that we were allowed to eat, there was an ever-growing list of do's and don'ts and can'ts and shouldn'ts and won'ts, and it was all because those things were of the world, therefore we didn't partake. And that list was ever changing. Like for the longest time, it was no candy, no chocolate, no pork, no this, no that. And then it just grew because he was pulling from different things. It wasn't just Christianity. It was Jewish, it was Hindu, and it was whatever fit his, whatever psychosis at the time. It was what he turned into law for the rest of us. And so there was an ever changing rules and regulations based on whatever it was that he was whimming at the time. And so when you talk about when I lived there, yes, everything, no toys, no bicycles, like anything that was of the world, we weren't allowed to partake. And every single weekend we would make a commute to the compound. We lived 4.5 hours away from the compound when I was a child. And every single weekend we commuted to the compound, and we would get there on Friday, late afternoon, early evening, and we would stay until late evening on Sunday and then drive back just in time to go to school and work on Monday morning. So our whole identity was the compound, was the cult, was the leader. But when I say like our whole identity, we weren't allowed to be friends with people in the cult. We were segregated. We were kept separate from each other, and we weren't allowed to talk to one another. Again, this goes back to the control. This goes back to the fear. And so we are living every single weekend with 200 to 300, 400 people at some points. And yet we are not allowed to talk to any of them. Imagine the lunacy of that, right? Wow. And how he is able to control us without being in the room.
Yeah.
Because you know that if somebody tells on you, you're going to be publicly humiliated, or you're going to be, physically beaten, or whatever it is, right? So there's this constant fear of staying in line.
Yeah.
So you just don't even ask questions. Like now I questioned everything, right? But back then I didn't know that I could question. That was not an option that was ever given to me. I didn't know that, right? So it just goes to show just how ingrained he was in every aspect of our lives, and we allowed it.
That's interesting that you said that. So you lived in a house away from the compound and away from him 5 days of the week. So, but you were still so well trained that even in your own space, I guess you didn't have school friends, you didn't have many neighbor friends, like nobody, you didn't communicate with anybody outside of your home.
Right.
Is that wow?
So, I mean, we went to public school, and so we had friends at school, but we weren't allowed to do anything at school, or we couldn't have sleepovers. We couldn't have people over. So our relationship was just school and home, right? And so you kept two I talk about this a lot in the book, how I lived two completely separate identities. I had school and then I had cult, and I never let those two worlds get too close because I understood from a very young age that my school friends wouldn't understand what I'm doing at the cult, and my cult people wouldn't approve of what I'm doing at school, right? And so I kept those worlds very separate my whole life.
So now you reminded me of something, and I want to talk about this. We're going to take a quick commercial break and then talk about this when we come back. But you reminded me of when you moved away to a different state. Even talk about when we come back from the break. Start to talk about like how you started creating a different life in the different state and why. And kind of because you talk about the different worlds, right? And how those worlds really became really separate once you moved away. We're going to take a quick commercial break, everyone. Don't go anywhere. I know you want to hear more of Martha's story. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and we are back. We are here with Martha Kartaoui. She is the author of Glory, Going All In. Make sure that you grab her book on Amazon. We're going to have the link there for you right on the show page. We were discussing her life in a cult and wanted to come back and just talk about, she mentioned before we went to the break, how she separated her lives, her school life versus her cult life. So talk about, the journey that took you to another state and what those two lives looked like then.
Yeah. So when I was 12, my dad's business got bought out by a large corporation in North Carolina. So my family moved to North Carolina. So that shifted and changed our worlds in a huge way because we were no longer going to the cult every single weekend. But we were still so trained in the control and the manipulation that we followed the rules because that's all we knew. Most of us kids were born into it, and so we followed the rules. And we still took part in sermons on the weekends. We had to listen to them on speakerphone. We would sit on our knees around the speakerphone and listen to them for hours. But there was also this kind of opening of this new world to me and to my siblings in general, right? Because now we weren't going to the compound every weekend, and so we had just a little bit more liberty in our lives. So I really started pushing boundaries, and I really started just being. But for like looking at it now, I was just being a teenager. I was just being a creative kid, right? Like the things that I did, like cutting my hair with scissors, like that. What? That's not that bad, right? So, or like I would put shorts and pants under my skirt and like wear a skirt out the house, and then I would change in my truck. Like that's not that bad. Like I was just wanting to fit in. I just wanted to be a regular kid, right? But there was those small things that I really started saying, like, I just want to be normal, because I always felt, I say this in the book, I felt like a walking billboard of like, you don't fit in. You don't, like, you're weird. Like, why do you look like that? Why do you act like that? Why do you eat like that? Why do you pray like that? Right? Like, that's what I felt like, just this freak all the time. And I just wanted to fit in. And so I started to do things that made me fit in a little bit more, But and so I really started having even more so two separate worlds. But then, as I talk about in the book, those worlds collided several times, and I had to deal with the repercussions of when those worlds collided. And for the most part, it was short-lived, because when I graduated high school, 7 days after I graduated high school, Cult Man summoned me, and I was brought back to the compound to live in the compound. And that's where I spent the next 8 years. So all of the things that I had done as a teenager caught up to me and ended landing me back in the compound, living with Cult Man for 8 years, which was basically the next part of the story, which was absolute living hell, and where I experienced unimaginable trauma.
Yeah. I want to ask you a quick question before you go into that, because I definitely want you to talk about that time period. But I wanted to know, like, if you had not rebelled, do you think that you would have been called back to the compound, or do you feel like you were just, kind of chosen by him anyway, so he would have made like any excuse to bring you back?
I think it's the latter,
Yeah.
because I had been chosen at such a young age. I'd been chosen by age 7. So since I'd been chosen at such a young age, he would have done whatever to get me to bring me back to the compound. He was just waiting for me to be legal age in order to do that. And so he had to legally wait until I was 18 to be brought back to the compound. And, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I guess he wouldn't be accused of doing anything to underage person.
There goes that's the manipulation part again, right? And
Yeah,
being
yeah.
calculated about his decisions.
Right.
But talk about that time period, right? Because that was, the way you describe it in the book, it's just wow. It's mind blowing to think about all of the things and to see, I'm going to say this, right? Your light now, after going through what you went through. So talk about that time period.
Yeah. So 7 days after high school, I am dropped off at the compound by my parents. And I have a sleeping bag, a duffel bag full of clothes, and that's it. Like, that's everything that I own in life. It's in a duffel bag, and I have one Rubbermaid box full of toiletries and things like that, and a sleeping bag. That is my life. And I moved into the compound. I lived on concrete with a sleeping bag and in a little 4x6 underneath some stairs that go up into the compound. And that's the way it started. And within the first 24 hours of being at the compound, as soon as my parents left, Cult Man pulled me aside and said that, I was filthy and disgusting and fat and ugly and defiled, and all of the things that I had done as a teenager were disgusting and had defiled me, and that I needed to be cleansed and I needed to go on a cleanse diet. And that cleanse diet ended up being 5 months of just 1 gallon of Tang a day. I was basically starved almost to death. And so that was a very dark time for me, but I thought I deserved it. I thought that all the things that I had done were seriously that horrible, and that, yes, I was that defiled and that disgusting and that ugly, that I needed to be cleansed from them, and that God was that angry at me. And that God wanted nothing to do with me. So I was willing to do whatever I needed to do in order to be forgiven. And I thought that meant this starvation.
Yeah. And I want to point out too, like, just thinking about what you had discussed earlier, right? When it comes to the manipulation and the brainwashing too, right? To say that because you were taught from birth to up to that 18-year-old girl that all these things were so disgusting, right? So that these things, if you do these things, God won't love you, right? To make you feel like you deserve the punishment that he gave you, as if he had the right. And I'm saying this from a place of just like, wow, just heartfelt, like as if he had the right, but he thought he did, right? to do these things to you and make you feel like you deserve them. Um, oh, yeah, man. Um, it's hard to talk about it when you think about how people just use their own, I don't know, desires, whatever their program is all about, like, right,
Right.
just to hurt
They twist
people.
their minds.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, in this conversation has even solidified the thought that I've said it all the time. People want power.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and this just solidified for me. It has nothing to do with money. It has
Mhm.
nothing to do. They'll get that in the process, but people want power,
Mhm.
and power over others is what people want.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's so sad to hear what happened to you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and even the fact that they waited till 18 is even more proof of they knew that they had
Right.
manipulated you so good that even when you were considered now an adult, that you wouldn't turn away from it.
Mhm.
That is
Right.
just the ultimate, and it's sad, but it's so understandable because
Yeah.
people take whatever they can, right? We see things playing out right now in social media, and the question comes, how would everybody, why did so many people subject themselves to this? It's no different. It's
Yeah.
no
Exactly.
different. You
And you
said
have to
for the
think
power.
about.
Other people is for the fame, and for whatever your thing is. Like you said, Tracy, whatever the thing is
Yeah.
you're seeking,
Yeah.
That's right.
figure out how to manipulate.
You mentioned church, right? Like, we all were raised in the church too, right? Like, you you go by what you learned as a kid. Like, same
That's
same with
right.
Martha, right? We were placed into our churches from birth. So whatever
Mhm.
you learn there is what you take with you. It's what you continue to live by, especially when
Exactly.
it comes to, because the situations are the same. We grew up in the church. We live by what we learned in our church, good or bad, right? It is what it is.
Right.
So it's the same with
Yeah.
Martha. She grew up there, and it
Yeah.
was biblical principles that he was using. You live by those things more so than anything else out there, right? You
Right.
live by, if you are
Right.
faithful people and you are looking for something more divine, right, greater than you live by those principles, no matter where you get it from, good or bad. And there's good and bad coming out of all of them, right? Like, but that's what you go by. So it's hard to
Exactly.
to turn the page on that or flip the switch on that when it's something that you've been taught your whole
Your whole life.
life,
You know
you
nothing different.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go
And
into.
that's where it all stems from that same place. Sorry,
I'm sorry,
it's
say that
probably a
again,
delay.
Shane. Say that again.
I said it, and it all stems from that same place. Even like you
Mhm.
said, our situations are similar and different in both aspects, but it all stems from that same place where she started the conversation, wanting to be a part of something,
Mhm.
camaraderie,
Mhm.
community. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what God tells us. We're not here to do things alone,
Mhm.
but it's that yearn to have things your way,
Mhm.
and to be the boss of, or to be the epitome of, that taints that feeling of camaraderie or togetherness or community. It's just a selfishness. It's just
Yeah.
I can go on for days
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what it is,
But
but
you have to
it's
remember, this is also becomes your normal. Whatever it
Mhm.
right,
is that you know becomes your
Right.
normal. And because I had
Right.
nothing to compare it to, just like I'm assuming that you guys had nothing to compare it to with whatever you were taught, right?
Mhm.
And so when you have nothing to compare it to, it's your normal. It's the only thing that you know.
Yeah.
And so, but when you start to when you start to see other things, then you're going, oh, how does this fit in now, right? Like, you have the ability to then start having some reasoning. But I was
absolutely
26 years old when I finally had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I never had the ability to ask those questions or to be even see other things that might fit into something that I had gone through and say, well, how does this fit in?
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't fit in. that is not normal, right? I had nothing to compare it
to compare it to.
Yeah. And think about this, like, how could you, right? When you think about how we as humans evolve and mature, right? Like, you had to get to the place where you were mature, where you could really sense, ooh, there are different things out there. Like, how do you do that as a child, right? We are steered by our parents, and hopefully, we have good parents to do that, or good people in our community to do that and steer us in a certain way. But how do you know? You can't discern most things as a child, right? You're just not mature enough to do that. You're not at that level. So before we close out the show, I just want to talk about transformation, right? Because I want to now go back to where we started at the beginning, where you met Papa, and I know this about your story too, and I want to mention this. No matter where it comes from, because I remember you saying the courage to leave came from the fact that your sister, who had already left, who was already on the outside, got pregnant. So
Yep.
that it's all right though. Something had to happen, right? God had to make you move in a certain way to get you out there. But talk about that whole transformation and leaving, and tell us about
So I share this in the book, and I remember sharing it on your podcast as well. Because I had no identity, and I had no like love for myself, and I had no self-awareness, I would never have left for me. Like that. I know that sounds crazy, but I was so controlled. I was so naive that there was anything else out there. This was the epitome of what my life was going to be, until the moment that I found my sister on the internet, and I hadn't seen her in almost 6 years, and I start communicating with her, and I find out that she's pregnant. She's married, and she's pregnant with her first child. And for me, that was a light switch, because my sister and I had always been very, very close growing up. And now I had purpose. Right. When I heard that, I was like, I will come hell or high water. I will find a way out of here, and I will find a way to come home and be with you during your pregnancy. Because my parents were in the cult. So she didn't have my parents. She had her husband, who didn't have a good family either. And so she was alone, pregnant with her first child. And I was like, no, I will find a way to get home. So she gave me purpose. Her unborn child, my niece, gave me purpose. And now suddenly I wanted to live for something, because I had no purpose. I had no reason to get up in the morning other than to go to work at the fudge shop and see Papa. That was my life. Like everything was so controlled. I had no purpose. And this gave me purpose. So when I found that out, I was like, okay. And that's when I sat down and I just poured my heart out to Papa, and I told Papa everything. And now I was like, okay, now I know why I need to get out. And I know that I have to get out, and I have to be successful at it, because her unborn child needs me, and I have to be part of their life. We are not going to repeat that cycle of aunts and uncles not being allowed in our children's lives, like it was for me and was for my sister. I was going to be there for that child. And guess what? I was. So, that's where it started, but I didn't do it for me. I did it for her. I did it for my sister. I did it for the unborn child. But Papa saw that in me. And Papa went to God and sought God in this and said, how do I help her? And then you can read the details of that in the book. But, that was what got me out, was finding purpose in my sister, in her unborn child, and gave me the courage to choose to find a way out.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Whatever it took.
What a story.
Whatever it took.
What a life.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to get the book, because there's so many details in this book that, we just can't share in an hour, right? So many. I mean, I was telling Martha, when I read the book, I was like, I am so disturbed, and like I couldn't put the book down though. All right. I could not put it down, and so happy at the end of it, right? Because, and I didn't tell her that, but that part of it, but just so happy at the end of it, right? Because not only does she go through her story here, she also goes through like transformation and what that looks like and what that can be for each and every one of you who is being held back by something. It's how to break the chains here, right? So this is not just about breaking away from a cult, though, right? This is breaking away from anything that is holding you
That's
back.
holding you back, yeah.
That has you, just chained to something, but
bound, stuck,
Yes.
abandoned, any of those things. Like
Yes.
those are all trauma responses, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be cult trauma. It's just trauma, pain, and it's all relative because pain is pain, trauma is trauma. But the responses to those things are feeling stuck, feeling abandoned, feeling alone, feeling like nobody will understand, all of those things.
Yeah.
And the principles that I share in the back of that book are the things that truly helped me to navigate and be my own advocate and heal through my own trauma. And yes, there was lots of helpful modalities that I used, and I share those in the book as well. But once I was through that inner child work and that deep stuff that I had to uncover in order to heal the, physical trauma, the sexual trauma, I needed principles to start moving forward.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I share in the back of the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sound like a therapist now.
She probably could be.
I've done a lot of work.
No, but I think it's so that it's such a and I am going to get the book because I want to know, to recognize when I see things like what does that look like, and then refer to how do you come out of it. To your point, I've met a lot of people that are bound by number of reasons, right? Mm-hmm. But it is, I think when you love God and there's a call on your life, I think the continuation of, and I'm a strong believer in God using your story to elevate you, but then to break free for others, right?
Yeah, that has been the last 6 months of my life. Is I ran a long time from, I didn't want to be the cult girl. Right. I didn't want to be known as and the last 6 months, God's like, no, I made you to be the cult girl because you got work to do. So you might as well embrace it. You might as well find the power and the courage in it because I got plans for you. Right. And so I've really had to step into that and been like, but God, I said I didn't want to be the cult girl. And I've had to pout and I've had to fight. And then I'm like, okay, God, whatever it takes to be what you've called me to be, I will step in and be. And as soon as I've done that, the red carpet's just rolled out for me as God has just been one thing after another, wrote the book, then started speaking, then started traveling, all the things that have come from that. But it was the surrender, right? We talk about that all the time, about needing to surrender and say, okay, God, what is it that you've called for me to be in this life? And am I living in alignment with all that you've created me to be? And the answer for me was no, only a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And so I had to dive in and I had to go all in. Yeah. Like the book says. So.
He's so beautiful that he takes our what we think is the worst thing in our lives.
Our brokenness.
And our pain is our platform. We've learned it. And absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it.
We thank you, Martha. I mean, this has been amazing. You have such a compelling story. Everyone out there, Shimashi has already posted the link for the book in the comments under the show. So make sure that you hit that link and go get this book, Glory, Going All In You. This is such a compelling story. It's an amazing read. It's written so well. So well, you're not going to be able to put the book down. I'm telling you, you will not be able to put the book down. But we thank you. I thank you for being the light that you are, for accepting the calling that God has given you, for driving purpose through, right, to help people get unstuck from whatever it is that they are stuck. Thank you for having the courage to do that. and to come and tell your story. We love you. We thank you. You can come back anytime.
Thank you, ladies. This has been so much fun. How has it already been an hour? I feel like we just got started.
I know.
Always goes like
I
that.
know.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Everyone out there. I know. Everyone out there, make sure that you tune in next week right here on FEM Talk at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, go get your book. Take care.
Thank you.